How have you been, man?
All right, thanks. How are you? I just forgot I installed it. But yeah.
It's good, yeah. It's been a while, but not too long. Not
Not
too
too
long.
long. Yeah.
No. How are you doing? Have you been working hard on Ashes?
No, sadly, my wonderful producer friend got incredibly busy. He and his partner did the music for a whole movie, and yeah, lots going on. So we're still like this close to finishing. Thing is, it's like mid-December now. I'm like, well, who knows?
Uh,
Yeah.
so before we get into more about the flame specifically, um, do you want to give us maybe a recap since our last interview, who you are, what you're doing, and where you're up to? I think that'd be useful.
Sure. Well, can't remember what I said last time, but yeah, I started doing music when I was a teenager, mostly sort of guitar stuff, a bit of piano sometimes, and did a little school album, which is, in retrospect, quite embarrassing, but we'll get back to that. And then maybe like 10 years later, I started working with this current producer and a friend who does lots of awesome guitar. So sort of picked it back up from that. And yeah, I don't know. I'm curious to see what you think because like the previous project was very sort of electronic poppy,
Yeah,
and the first album, so from 2019, the one we're talking about, is a little more eclectic.
yeah. So the flame had finally kind of been re-uploaded. Like, what was the
Yeah,
story behind that?
it was just some really boring like indie artist shit wherein like I use a specific platform to put your music up everywhere.
Yeah,
And they're like, your subscription's about to run out. I tried to pay them several times and it did not work. So they just took it down.
yeah.
And then I was like, okay, it seems to be working now. Can we put it back up? And they were like, no, no, you'll need to find the original masters and the artwork and redo it. So it just took me a million years to get it done.
What an effort. What an effort. Um, so I mean, does that annoy you in a way that like the dates on them aren't in the order in terms of how you've been creating these projects?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, it's just when it says sort of new project or something, I'm like, no, that was 5 years ago. But what can you do? At
That's it,
least
because it like going on your profile it says the flame, and then you like add it, and yeah, it looks like a new upload, doesn't it? But I guess at the end of the day, they're all together. That's what matters. You know.
I mean, hopefully.
Well, the Beatles' final album wasn't the final thing they recorded, and they were fine. So
And I'm basically the Beatles. So
yes, they like the same guys. So you mentioned a producer friend. I don't think in the last interview we talked too much about that. Is it Michael Stradinsky?
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I mean, just coming off the back of listening to The Flame, the production on all the projects is very, very high quality. Are they professional producer by trade?
Yeah, he's really fantastic. He's like I said, he just not scored necessarily, but did all the music for this film that just came out with his partner.
Yeah.
Uh, I think it was called. Hang on, I'll tell you what it's called. Give them a proper shout out. Of a lifetime.
Right.
And my friend, my guitar playing friend, who does a lot of stuff with me, also played on that. Did a cover of Exit Song by Radiohead.
All
Anyway,
right.
yeah, and
Surprisingly, I haven't really listened to Radiohead. I really should.
neither have I really. I'm just like creep. Yep, got
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, there's the one. Wow.
But yeah, Michael he does all sorts of things. He's in a band with his partner called Corbal, who are amazing. He's in a duo of double pianists with one of his friends called Rubard and Strudinsky. He's done my stuff. He's done stuff for plenty of of people. He's just, yeah, he's really fantastic.
Yeah, yeah, and the production quality really does shine through as well. So let's talk about the flame. I might sound a bit like serene and maybe calm, but that's because the topics on the flame have kind of left me a bit. Oh, they seem very, very heavy, I would say. What's the inspiration behind the topics on the flame?
Well, I think maybe I can, put you out of a little bit of misery on that one. It's basically that most of these songs are ones I wrote a long, long, long time ago. So they're quite teenage angsty or, you know, um, early 20s or whatever. Like these aren't recently written songs, even at the time of recording. Like a solid majority of them were taken from that slightly embarrassing album I made when I was in school.
Oh,
Um,
right. So, were these a lot of tracks accumulated over quite a few number of years and then ended up on the flame?
yeah, exactly. Like, I talked about how I hadn't made anything for quite a long time while I went away to uni and
Hmm.
dropped out and tried again and all this shit. So yeah, I did nonetheless feel that quite a few of the songs were pretty sort of salvageable, if you like, just sort of done in a different way.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, well, I mean, maybe if you want to talk about them individually, I can tell you a bit more about that. But I think that's why maybe they seem a bit intense. Is that I was like,
No, I think we should dive into it, and it's really interesting. Like when I was listening to it, I was noticing parallels. I don't want to end up talking about my music, but I have one album that is a collection of songs through like being like 16 to 23, 24, um, kind of all turned into slightly the same genre. Um, they were kind of a bit different, but then kind of transferred them into this similar kind of 80s sound. Um, which I'm just like I'm hearing on the flame, and I'm like, this is so similar. There's even a song on it called Lost Cause. So it's very very interesting to like see the parallels there. Um, so yeah, let's dive into it. I have to say, like, it starts quite upbeat. You've got maybe four tracks, The Flame, Over the Sea, 7 Days, The Line, kind of upbeat, but lyrically still quite, I'd say, emotional, and you can tell that some of these things mean something to you. And then it goes into the Great Depression, let's call it. For from track 5 to 8, it just goes like really kind of down to earth, and heavy.
remind me, I can't even remember the sequencing at this point.
That's So Quiet, Lost Cause, Bats and Butterflies, Tell Me. Um, and then it does pick up towards the end again and gets a bit more upbeat 80s style, with Little Bits, Sophie's Song, and One of Those Days. So the track ordering for me was kind of like, yeah, woo, and then towards the end. So it was quite an interesting journey. Um, so yeah, I'd love to know the background to kind of the individual songs if you can remember them, because I know from a
I
while
can,
ago.
I can. Yeah, yeah.
Let's start with the title track then, The Flame.
The Flame is an interesting one. I think that's the first one where I was at uni, and it's the first one that I did sort of I demoed it myself. I did the garage bands and the keyboards
Yeah.
and all that. Because I think I was just sitting in my room and I could hear like the bass from the next student house over or whatever. Uh, and I thought like well, no, it doesn't end up. It doesn't sound like this on the album. But at the time, it was a certain like bass rhythm that I was like, oh, that's fun,
Yeah.
and I kind of felt like doing something that wasn't quite as like weepy on the guitar and all that stuff. I wanted to do the kind of music that I enjoyed a little more
Yeah.
and sound like a little more confident or a little hornier or you know whatever.
Yeah.
So that was just really fun, and it was kind of an experiment. Really, I wanted to do a slightly gold frappy electro pop song, and
Hmm.
I think I did fine, but obviously then Michael took it. Yeah.
Even further, yeah. Um, the feeling I got was very tainted love. Um, even vocally, your voice lends itself to this kind of almost that 80s dramatic British voice that we get from that era. And I
Thank
do
you. That's
feel that,
really
especially in
nice
the
to hear.
first few songs, which is great.
That's
Um,
really cool to hear because I've often thought that like I shouldn't be doing this type of music. That I should just be doing like I don't know folk or soul or rock or something. And I'm like,
yeah,
leave the pop to the people with a voice for it. So thank you very much.
that's great. I'd love to hear you doing folk as well. That'd be very interesting. Over the Sea, then.
Ooh, Christ, over the sea. Oh yeah, I think that's I can't even really remember how or when I wrote it. No, I know I had a little chorus first. I had the up the hills and over the sea, there's someone waiting for me thing.
Yeah.
And like since my guitar is kind of okay but not great, I couldn't figure out how to kind of make it work because like the chorus was in double time and the verses were, just sort of standard.
Mm.
And I couldn't quite figure it out. So I was like, oh, Michael, if you want, there's this, give it a go. And then when it came out, I was just like, oh, this is perfect. Like it sounded sort of blue in my brain the way it
Yeah,
should,
that's
like
good.
it's like this is, and this happens all the time with him. I was just like, it's like you reached into my brain and were like, here we go.
A lot of the production then choices from Michael, were they quite 80s inspired? Does he naturally kind of go towards that with the synths, or is that something you asked for?
Well, he's an incredible pianist, so he can do all sorts of things.
Yeah,
He does lean synth fairly often with his band Corbal and
yeah.
so on. But when we first talked about making music, I was at that stage where I was just like, really? Would you would you be down to do that? Like really secure. And he was just like, yeah, yeah, okay. So, like, what are a couple of references you have? What kind of, I think the major one for me at the time was Lord,
Right.
specifically melodrama, which you wouldn't think. But from that, he sort of narrowed down the palette that he wanted us to use together
Yeah.
in terms of beats and in terms of synths and so on. And it's obviously not like a one-to-one comparison because it didn't end up sounding like Lord really at all. But it was sort of finding our way
Hmm.
into what we wanted it all to sound like. Yeah.
Do you find these days then you have maybe a bit more of a say, an idea of where you want things to go, um, after the initial kind of songs were made?
Yeah, definitely. I think I still sometimes struggle a little bit because I don't necessarily have that kind of producer ear where you like, you work on it over and over and over and you're hearing little things like um, I hate days where we're like choosing vocals or because I hate listening to the same sentence over and over again, especially in
Yeah.
my voice, like
Yeah.
um but so I kind of like sometimes I still think I lose the thread a little bit and uh it's still something I'm learning, but definitely having worked with him now since 2018, 2019, we've got a shorthand. Yeah.
Yeah. Bit more of a groove kind of
Yeah.
to get
Yeah.
into, yeah. 7 days?
7 days. For me, like, I don't know, growing up, if you had other musician friends or whatever, um, like they would have like a big hit just like in a friend group.
Yeah.
And that was that one for me.
Mm.
It was the first one he ever reproduced for me as well, if you will. Originally, it was kind of pop rock. I was probably listening to like Kelly Clarkson and Avril Lavigne and all that shit. I was
Yeah.
16, 17. So it was very like, da,
Nothing wrong
da,
with that.
da, 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 da. Like it was sort of I expected it to go a completely different way. And then when he sent me back, the very first track he sent me was that I just sort of went, what's happening now? Like, this sounds amazing. But he'd speeded it up so much as well that I was like, how am I going to do this? Like, it's been 7 days, you know what? Like, I'm quite mumbly as well as the person. So I was like, okay, speed, precision, like,
Enunciate.
bitch. But
Yeah.
it was so fantastic. So and it's still a lot of my friends' favorites. And I haven't looked at the analytics recently, but I'm sure it's up there.
I really enjoyed Seven
One of
Days. Yeah.
my
It says I've got the right song. It says Purple Haze in it. Is the lyrical topic about what I think it is, or is there some of that in it? Kind of Purple Haze,
I
Jimi
just thought I was being
Hendrix.
clever, you know, because like obviously it's kind of a quite basic love as a drug analogy or whatever.
Right, right.
Uh,
Okay.
Although it's not like I was in love with, I don't know. I mean, you know, that's maybe just me being cute, but it's although I wasn't a total stranger to Purple Haze, shall we say, it wasn't about that.
Right, right. Just kind of used more metaphorically then, in a way. Yeah. And then the line. So we're still kind of upbeat for now. The line.
The Line was the one song I didn't write on this. That was written by Michael's partner, Lola Bastar. She just sort of gave it to me. She was like, "Hey, I've been writing something, and I don't know, but I feel like it sounds like you. So have a look."
Mm,
She's just released her solo album, by the way. It's amazing because she's in the group with Michael Corbell, but she's
yeah.
just on her own separate project called Governor's Tavern.
Well, send me the link. I'll put it in the description for you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I will. So yeah, she gave me that song, and I didn't have such a personal connection to it, but I she allowed me to rewrite a couple of lyrics here and there to make it feel more personal. But I just loved it, and the sonic landscape and sort of the gaps between lyrics and stuff. I don't know. I really
Uh,
enjoyed it.
there was a part in it that like it said lying, but it sounded like lying.
Yeah,
And I was picking up on that, and I thought, are they saying lying or lying?
both.
Um, both. And that I really liked that. The wordplay there was very clever, so
I was,
really good.
yeah, yeah. She's
And then we go to So Quiet. Was very
that is
emotional.
the that's the only one that I wrote at the time of recording. So I'd flown over to London to see them and finish up like last vocals, you know, any last mixing thoughts, this, that, and the other. It
Hmm.
was our last day and heading towards the end of the day, and they were like, "Well, we have to be somewhere," and I was like, "No, wait, I really like. I want to put something new on here, something of mine." So Lola handed me this tiny little keyboard about yay big, and I went out with my cigarette as usual to on their balcony to just sort of try and bang some stuff out because I had a couple of lyrics, and it was really like a race against time. Um, and I'm so glad I got it in. Like we managed in time. I wish I'd had more time to record it because it was all that day, and I was
Yeah.
like, I only just wrote this song. I don't know this song. Like I haven't gotten familiar with it or comfortable with it, but I think we did all right.
Yeah, you wouldn't
Uh,
have noticed. You wouldn't have noticed that it was
Thank you.
like, awkward to sing or anything. And I know the feeling when you feel that way about the song because you haven't, ran through it enough.
Yeah,
No, it felt fine to me, which is great.
cheers. Because I mean, I think the whole thing was start to finish done in like 4 hours or something, and I'm kind of glad for the pop nerd training I had to just be like, okay, you've got these parts, break them down, do this, do that. And thank you, I appreciate that because I remember sending the whole album to one of my old friends when it
Mm.
came out. He went, "Oh, well, that's my least favorite one," and I was like, "Great, I can't just be 20." Like, sorry. But yeah, no, I really like that song, and I like the feeling of it because although it is kind of slower and so on, it's positive. You know, it's wanting change and like
Mm.
growth.
Yeah, it did feel quite hopeful.
exactly.
This feeling, yeah, which
Right.
is good considering a lot of the songs did feel kind of like maybe more of a woe is me kind of um feel to them. Not all of them. Lost Cause.
Not all of them, but
No.
yeah.
Lost Cause is number six.
Lost Cause, I very specifically remember writing in class in school. And since I'd forgotten most of like my classical music skills, like writing stuff down, I
Yeah.
just had that thing with the little lines going up and down because I was trying to not forget what the melody was in my head. So I was writing down the lyrics and then just drawing little lines, being like,
Clever.
"It's class," like just trying so that as soon as history class was over, I could run up to the music studio and like get on the piano.
Nice.
Uh, and I was staring at the person I had a massive crush on at the time, the back of their head. So,
Very good. The next one then, Bats and Butterflies, was my favorite, my personal favorite.
awesome.
It was beautiful. Yeah, it was really beautiful. And it was so simple in terms of instrumentation, you know. It was just vocals and piano and it just felt very true. So I'm interested to know what it's about and if it is about anything, you know, personal in particular.
Yeah, I a little bit of TMI. I I read it, I think, in my early 20s when I was actually being like clinically treated for depression and anxiety. Um, and so I just like went away for a couple of weeks, if you will.
Yeah,
And I wrote it there just on my guitar, and I was feeling sort of quite freer. So I was making shapes and playing chords that I didn't even know like the name of or the root of really, because I'm just not a great musician really.
I do
Uh,
that.
you're just like, this sounds good, great.
Yeah.
Um, and so I wasn't like speaking about anyone. Well, I don't know. I wasn't sort of overwhelmingly. It wasn't about any one specific person. It was just kind of a when you're sort of, as I said, feeling really mentally unwell and stuff. You kind of can feel a bit sort of left behind, or in the dark, or whatever else. So I think it was largely about that. And then when Michael took it over. And again, because like these were all pre-written songs, so I'd send him my versions, and then he'd just go, "Here's a track that I made for this song." I was like, "What? What?" Like, it's got this kind of like do 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 do, like the sort of claps and the beat and stuff. I'm just really glad it found kind of a life because yeah, a lot of people have said that they enjoy that one, and that
Yeah.
surprises me, and I'm very pleased. It's like voice wise, when it's time to sing that one, I'm like, here we go, like.
Yeah, it felt like someone saying, you know, I hope you're doing well, maybe to like someone in the past, past relationship type thing, and like hoping they're okay and they're not struggling themselves. Kind of had that kind of reflection going on within it. Tell me about Tell Me.
I think that one came from just messing around on the piano and finding some fun sort of chord progressions for the verses.
Yeah,
But then again, like, looking back on it and thinking about it, that also clearly has this same kind of like emotional weirdness to it. It's like, I don't want to deal with any of this. Tell me what to do. Tell me you love me. Tell me it's going to be okay. Just,
give me direction kind of thing.
yeah. Sort of. Do you want the keys? You can have the like. I'm
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
Uh, so it wasn't particularly about anybody that particular one.
Mm,
I'm so pleased with how it turned out because Michael comes from a family of musicians. His dad is in a fairly successful like Christian band, I think, like maybe rock band, Christian band anyway.
yeah.
And So I don't know if it was through that, but Michael just sort of put these vaguely churchy organs on at the end, and it just sort of grows and grows, you know.
Yeah,
So at the end, it's like even though it's not hitting hard, it's hitting harder and harder, and
it's growing. Yeah,
I really enjoyed that.
super. Little bits.
That was one of the other ones that I initially had produced myself, and it was when I was at uni. So timeline would be all the rest of them, and then the flame, then little bits where I was not feeling very well at all. As you might have noticed on the lyrics, I was like, "Am I going crazy? Is that is that what's happening?" So I wrote it to make it, and I actually wrote the most of the like riffs and piano pieces and stuff as well at the
Yeah.
time because I was just wanted it to feel unsettling and worrying and so on, but also to have a little bit of like early 2000s like Britney or Justin kind of, just with the like rat-a-tat lyrics and like the changes in tempo and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. It
So
does still have a kind of like more upbeat flavor to it. Even though the topic and everything is, what it is, it's still like getting that punch. And I think at this point, after, four songs that have been quiet, it's a kind of welcome back kind of situation.
that's interesting because it starts so, it starts very slowly.
Mm. But we
But
we start to get back to it then, because then you
yeah,
got Sophie's song on one of those days, so it kind of grows back to it, doesn't it? So let's go on to Sophie's song.
yeah, that was written for my sister when I was maybe 15 or 16. Um, I don't want to get into like, the specifics of that.
Yeah,
It was like a big, um, I don't know, it really meant a lot at the time to me, maybe her, but like all my friends and stuff, I wrote it in Sri Lanka, weirdly enough, on a beach. we, we
nice.
went, we went on a school trip to Sri Lanka for like a theatre festival. Insane.
Wow.
Anyway, so I remember it. I remember it very fondly. But like, I know that since it was so long ago, I don't think any of us see stuff the same way anymore. So it's lost a little bit of its kind of like it's not one that I will choose to put on a set list these days, shall we say?
Yeah. Um,
But what happened with the final track, I was thrilled with. Yeah,
yeah. And it's a memory then, isn't it? Really, more than anything, stamped in time, which is why we make songs like that, isn't it? Really.
completely.
And then a final track. I do realize as an interviewer, I've just been going 7 days. The line.
Sorry, there's so many of them.
I'm doing so well. So you got one of those days that's like your final track.
Yeah, that was the title track of the original old school album. So it was also
Nice.
quite old. And I really, really love it. Even now. Like, because I feel like I did at a fairly young age, like a pretty good job of explaining just the kind of like um ennui or like, just this feeling, of sort of it's a grey day. I don't like I'm not connecting to life right now or something. Uh, so
I
I'm quite
loved writing about that topic. It's hard
really
to explain, isn't it? But yeah.
yeah, I did it. So like I don't know if I could do it again, but I was just like, honestly, I really enjoyed the song,
Mm,
uh, even though it's my own and so on. And this, I think, is the second one that Michael sent me, and I was blown away. Like I couldn't get over it. Just for a start, to hear something acoustic turned into this soundscape that again is to me in my head was kind of like, oh, it's the exact sort of blue silver feeling
yeah.
color sound I wanted. And then at the end, he just goes into these like synth in the outro into these like synth solos for like over a minute. And then afterwards, when we got Sean Leyland, my guitar playing friend, in on it, and it just got even bigger. I was like, this is my favorite part of the album, is where I'm not singing at all. And it's just the outro because the feeling is so, yeah, I don't know.
Sometimes it's a greater to just have the music kind of explain the feeling sometimes, isn't it? And just let it have its time. Really
Yeah,
good.
well, I was like, I've said all I had to say. And now if you want to just take us on a soundscape, then I'm so down, you know? So I thought I had to slap it at the end.
Yeah.
I will say that I am very annoyed that it's not one of the more listened to songs purely because I put it that way in the track listing.
Yeah.
I
You're always at risk with that, aren't you, when it's at the end?
I didn't realize at the time. I was like, no, I'm like sequencing things in an order that I think makes sense. I'm not like front loading all the singles up top. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Anyway,
Sometimes as well, the better tracks are at the end. Going back to the Beatles, I don't know why I've got Beatles on the mind again, but at the end of Sergeant Pepper's, you've got A Day in the Life, and that's one of their biggest songs, and it's on the very end. So, um, try and force people to try and listen to it. Go on, there you go.
well, you you need to
Yeah,
hope that they stay hooked.
yeah. Right. Well, I hope you've enjoyed kind of going back through and reliving the memory of that album. So let's talk a little bit about the future then. So Ashes, the Ashes, or
Ashes.
Ashes. You've got this trilogy, haven't you?
Yeah.
The Flame, Embers, and Ashes. Kind of following this kind of fire kind of theme of something that is burning out basically, and then becoming nothing at the end, really, just a pile of ashes. Um, you did explain in our last interview what that album was kind of like. Would you mind explaining again? And if there has been any updates since?
Yeah, it's The Flame was, I mean, originally obviously this one song I wrote when I was maybe 17 or 18, my first year at uni. And um I don't know why it at the time it wasn't a plan. Like I think 5 years ago, I just called it that. Maybe I just thought it sounded cool, or it was like a representation of sort of the passion to do it. Um, and so I only kind of thought about it later, I think, when I started writing more to sort of make it into a trilogy or a cycle or whatever.
Yeah.
So Embers was what came directly after all that. It's the uni years, it's the fun times, but shit times, dancing and drinking and making bad choices and feeling crap about it.
Yeah, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Ashes is, I mean, essentially what happened is that like I wanted to make a big new album. And then as we were writing all these songs and going through it, I think it was Michael who suggested like splitting it up because he's quite correct that albums take a lot of
Mm.
work. So thank you for doing it. It's like a lot and people's attention spans are shrinking. And he was just like, no, just release like a 3 or 4 track EP and then do it again and then whatever. And I
Yeah.
was like, I've always loved an album, you know. But then when I figured we could split it into kind of vibes, then it kind of focused it down. So Embers was one thing, and Ashes is it's like slower. I don't want to say it's sadder because everything's sad, but no, but it is a bit as well. Because I think by that point, my mum had passed in 2019 and all this stuff. So it's kind of like it's not all sad as such, but it's melancholy, let's say.
There's nothing wrong with sad. And
I
when I said like it gets heavy, it does. Um, but that's not a bad thing.
No, it's one of my favorite types of music, especially. Well, that's the thing. I do love like sad bangers, but
Yeah.
yeah, on Ashes there'll be a few more strings, a bit more piano. we'll see how it'll turn out in the end result. But at this
Yeah.
stage, I'm hoping first quarter of next year it'll be out.
Right. Have you had these songs for a while then? I know you mentioned your mom. I'm so sorry to hear about that. Um, you know, when did you start? Was it soon after that or
Yeah, we had started up with both Embers and Ashes at the same time, like when I wasn't sure where what was going where in 2019. They're not all from then, but so right before the fun Panny D lockdown times. So we had a big old pause. But yeah, I definitely had written the one that is about my mother. Either, well, maybe it's 2020. A few of them have been hanging around for a little bit, and as with every project, I'm still working on the song that I want to be on there. That's like from now, you know,
yeah,
because I don't want to put something out that's entirely stuff from 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago. I want something that's like, and this is how I'm feeling now. Boom.
yeah. So
Yeah,
are you kind of like full stop ending it with this is where I'm at now?
yeah.
So it's going on a timeline in this last
Yeah,
EP.
yeah. I might have said this last time, but like after having realized that it was this sort of trilogy and so on, and story of my life kind of stuff, really, I really I'm. It sounds awful, but I just really want to get it done in a way because I want to turn a page and sort
Yeah,
of move on and see what does my world look like now, not then, and like what move forward,
yeah. Have you already had a peek at the next page then? Have you got things in mind?
No, I've got a couple of lost songs, if you will.
Yeah,
I've maybe an idea of kind of sounds I want to try, styles or whatever.
yeah.
Uh, but I'm like, is that cheating? Does it have to be totally new from scratch?
All
Do
right.
you have do you have
Yeah.
to just sit down with a blank page and be like, no, no, you wrote that like 3 years ago. Don't do
Yeah.
that.
Is that still from the previous chapter, I guess,
Yeah,
is the thought,
yeah.
isn't it? I'd be nice to kind of just like, get your hands kind of done with that and start new, nice blank slate, I guess. Be
Um,
good. So yeah, I'm looking forward to listening to that too. And thank you for chatting. Go and
Thank you for.
check out
Can
The Flame.
I do a cheeky question?
Okay.
Did you have any favorites or any that you truly couldn't be handling?
Ooh, favorites or couldn't be handling. Favorite was Bats and Butterflies by far. Loved 7 Days, and The Line because of the wordplay. I'm a sucker for wordplay. I thought Sophie's song was very interesting. Things that maybe I mean, there's not ever really anything I couldn't be like doing with. But
But
there's ones that I think, if that was gone, I wouldn't be too sad. Was
yeah,
probably Tell Me and trying to remember now. Tell Me and maybe Lost Cause.
piano one.
Um,
I was thinking, yeah.
yeah, but I mean, to say that doesn't mean they're bad in any sense. It's
No,
just
no,
more.
I asked. I'm always just interested.
No, it's nice to have someone ask about that, and take criticism well. And it's really good to be able to do that. So yeah, thank you. I've just realized we've got less than a minute left, so we may have to end it there if that's all right. But take care of yourself, and I'll see you soon.
You too. Thanks so much for doing this.
Take care. Bye.
And now it feels so good to say hello, 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 hello. And now it feels so right to say I miss you, I love you. And God, it feels so good to say hello. God, it feels so good to say hello.
Bye, ladies and gentlemen.